It's 8 o'clock. We're ready to get started. Full committee of the House Insurance Committee. To begin with, I'm going to ask our Vice Chairman if he would say an invocation for us. Mm-hmm.
Let us pray.
Are you 16?
I've hit.
Okay, there you go. Go ahead.
Okay. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all your many blessings of life. We thank you for allowing us to serve our fellow man in this great state. We ask you to be with us, to lead us, to guide us, and to give us wisdom. We pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Good morning. Welcome. Good to see you all here. We have a couple of bills on the calendar. This is the full committee. This is not subcommittee. We've already dealt with both of these bills in subcommittee. We've received public testimony in subcommittee. This is a full committee meeting. During the full committee meeting, you will hear the presentation from the author of the bill and be able to ask questions of the author. So that's the format, that's the structure here. There is no public testimony. That was done during subcommittee. So the first bill that we have is from Representative Gamble, House Bill 241. I believe I saw him come in. Is he?
On your left.
All right, sir. Please, if you prefer to go to the
Yes, sir. That's fine.
mic.
It's just a handout. Okay.
All right. And I believe we have a handout.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's good to be with you today. I hope you're doing well. And you have before you House Bill 241, and we're working from LC 460406S. And I appreciate the opportunity just to share a little bit about this legislation this morning. Just a little background on the bill in front of you. Service contracts are sometimes called extended warranties. These are optional. These are not required products that you have to purchase like a homeowner's policy or an auto owner's policy. These are completely optional agreements, which consumers may purchase to provide coverage for the repair of certain damage to or for the replacement of certain items connected with particular property. Automobiles are frequent targets of damage via potholes, challenging weather conditions, or other road hazards that either are not covered by insurance or would fall below the amount of their insurance deductible. As a result, consumers frequently purchase service contracts to protect them from unanticipated damage. Current Georgia law, there are only 2 states left that expressly prohibit a deduction of claims paid from a refund amount when a customer cancels a service contract early. Georgia and Nevada are those 2 states. There is no particular reason for that other than this is antiquated and we're trying to update it to be in compliance with what the majority of the other states either don't expressly identify already or expressly allow. Right now, again, we expressly prohibit. In recent years, states have moved towards removing this express prohibition. For example, in Arizona previously maintained such a prohibition, but in 2018, the state changed its statute to instead expressly permit the deduction of benefits paid from any cancellation refund. Under the current statutory framework, the risk of fraud is much higher because service contracts to maintain vehicles are not required to be purchased, again, like insurance. For example, damage could occur to a vehicle prior to the purchase of a service contract, and once the consumer learns that the damage is not covered by their insurance policy or would be below their deductible, the consumer could potentially purchase a service contract after the damage to the vehicle has occurred, make a claim, and have a repair made under the terms of the contract, and then immediately cancel the contract and receive nearly a full refund after the full value of the repair has been provided. So with the legislation that you have before you, it would create a consistency by aligning Georgia code with law governing the cancellations of service contracts in the substantial majority of other states. Additionally, proposed legislation would eliminate fraud when claims are made and refunds are provided. And this bill would permit contracts for the replacement of lost, stolen, or inoperable key fobs. We're adding key fobs to this, and agreements to cover excess wear and use charges at the end of a lease. I have not been able to identify anyone that is opposed to this bill. I have met with the Department of Insurance or talked with their representatives that have confirmed that they're on board with this bill. I have also met with Stacy Freeman and Emily Blackwell that we talk to quite frequently in this committee, and resolved their concern in the substitute that you have before you. And so they're good with this legislation. I also want to mention to you that this bill passed the Senate last year 47-1. And the reason that it never made it to us is that occurred right before the COVID break. And when we came back from COVID in June for those 2 weeks, there were many bills that we didn't get to just because of the magnitude of the things that we were dealing with at that time. So in a nutshell, if we allow this bill, it will close the loophole that currently exists where you could purchase one of these warranties, file a claim and cancel it, and the provider would be on the hook for basically the full amount of the claim. Many of these warranties are financed into the cost of the car. And so that's the scenario that we're trying to address here with House Bill 241 that's in front of you. So.
All right. Committee members, you've heard the testimony. Do you have any questions of the author?
I'm number 8.
Yep. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Representative Gamble, under this scenario that you gave, are you saying they will give you a repair contract without looking at your car?
That is correct. And again, there's a lot more due diligence that goes into when you purchase a homeowner's policy. But with this particular coverage, they don't have the inspectors to look at each particular case. So again, that's why putting this in place is important. And I think that, it's time that we look at this as a state.
One more question, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
I got to tell you, I got a little bit of heartburn about deducting the claims paid, because if they have to cancel the policy, let's say in year 3 or year 4, and they had a claim, they're not going to get any money back.
Well, no, they will get money back at that point. And, generally these are around $900 is what you find oftentimes with what these warranties will run. So if they keep this policy, everything, it works as it normally is supposed to. The concern is if you have this warranty and you've purchased it and you have it for 2 or 3 months, and then you file these claims and they are paid, and then you cancel the warranty, that's the loophole that we're trying to close.
But it doesn't limit it to that. It says minus claims paid. That's for the entire contract, not for the first year.
Well, this would set in place a pro rata structure. Right now, they're on the short term with the Department of Insurance, so it would establish a pro rata share. And Chairman, I know we're not taking testimony this morning from anyone in the audience. Cade Cullifer is here. I've worked with him on this, and I know yesterday we had Jeff Ross from their industry here to speak on behalf of the bill. I hate that they're not with us this morning and able to speak. I think they could definitely clarify that. I'm happy to sit down with you, Representative Hughley, and get them to explain how this works. I just know that if we don't pass this legislation, the scenario that currently exists where you could purchase one of these warranties, keep it for a month or 2, and then cancel it after you filed a long list of items to be repaired under it, that exists. And that's ultimately what we're trying to get at with the legislation in front of you.
Any other questions from committee members? I see none. At this time, I will entertain a motion. What's the will of the committee? Have a do pass and a second. In the chamber, all in favor, say aye. All opposed? By way of Zoom, committee members, anyone opposed? I hear none. Assume everyone's in favor then. All right, your bill
Thank you.
passes. Thank you, sir. We'll move on to rules. The next measure we have is House Bill 254, and I will be making that presentation. I will call on my Vice Chair, Representative Williams, to come and let's see if we can get your mic working. You're at 16, it says. Try that. Good morning,
Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring to you House Bill 254. This is a bill that comes as a request from the Insurance Commissioner and the Department of Insurance. This is a bill that addresses the laws governing the operation and function of public adjusters here in Georgia. An adjuster, as many of you may know, is part of the process when a loss occurs and a claim is filed. An adjuster may be a company adjuster, or in this case, a public adjuster. They come into play to coordinate the processing of the claim and making the necessary, getting the necessary repairs accomplished. The laws that we have in Georgia governing the operation of public adjusters, however, they're very lax, and we have many reputable public adjusters, but because of the laxness of our laws, that creates loopholes and opportunities where some bad actors can do some things that are unscrupulous and often cause the claim to be not handled completely or appropriately. So public adjusters, as I said, they're one of the most consistent sources of fraud that the Georgia Department of Insurance has to deal with. And the majority of this fraud, as I said, is comes about because our laws are not as tightly structured as they should be. Often these, the people that are most often affected by this are our elderly, are disabled, or those that are in the most need, particularly after a natural disaster. Larger companies have adjusters that may be company adjusters, but smaller companies often rely on public adjusters, as well as in natural disasters where large volumes of claims exist. They are often part of the process in those situations. So we are the worst state in the South for public adjuster fraud. And as I said, primarily due to that, to the lack of these strong laws. That's what this bill is designed to accomplish, to increase the strength of our laws. House Bill 254 involves changes to Georgia's public adjusters laws based on the models used in Florida and Texas, which both of these states do a great job in regulating public adjusters while still protecting free markets. The changes that are proposed here in this House bill include higher standards for public adjuster contracts, new rules to protect consumers from bad actors after natural disasters, rules governing how public adjusters may represent themselves, new licensing rules bringing public adjusters in line with other types of licensing issued by the Department of Insurance, and new standards of conduct that's aimed at preventing dishonest practices. This legislation is not an attack on the public adjusters. As I said, we have many reputable adjusters who do exemplary work. But as I said, our laws are a little bit lax and create some opportunities for fraud, and that is the purpose of this proposed legislation. If you look at the legislation, it has about 6 sections on it. It goes into detail, but just as a quick overview, Section 1 gives the department the authority to adopt rules and regulations to implement the legislation. Section 2 says anyone acting as a public adjuster must hold a public adjuster's license issued by the department. Section 3 requires public adjusters to use contracts approved by the department. It outlines what these contracts must include, and it specifically bans the public adjuster from working in multiple capacities, including as a contractor or appraiser. This is one area where you really have a lot of laxness, which can be used by those folks that would do this type of thing in a negative way. There is some justification for some of that structure, but this is specifically designed to ban them from working in multiple capacities. It also, Section 4 outlines fees that public adjusters can collect. It also requires public adjusters to file proof of financial responsibility with the department. It has some record-keeping requirements. It bans public adjusters from soliciting during natural disasters, and it bans contractors from acting as adjusters on property that they are providing contractor services for. It also bans anyone who has had their public adjuster license revoked for being involved in any type of business that offers public adjusting services. And Section 6 lists the reason the department may deny an application or suspend or revoke a public adjuster's license. I know the bill has many pages and has a lot of language in it, but that's a brief overview of what is included in the bill. And I would be glad to answer any questions that you have, but that's the need for, the reason for, and the proposals to address some of the concerns that some of the laxness that currently exist in Georgia law. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that the committee might have.
Okay, are there any questions? I believe Representative Wilson.
Mr. Chairman, I don't really have a question, but I did want to just make a comment that in the subcommittee hearing, we heard some testimony that HB 254 deviates from the model legislation from the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. And, for the sake of the committee, I just wanted to say that I spent last night comparing the two. And if anything, it seems like HB 254 is more protective for consumers. And so I appreciate everyone's work on it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question. I too believe this is an important bill. We need to have this in place. On line 277, I want to make sure that if a public adjuster is licensed as a public adjuster and there is a need during a hurricane and there's a shortage of adjusters, can they switch hats and become a company adjuster or contract out with a carrier? Just that crossed my mind when I was reading it, just to make sure if they're allowed to do that or not.
I do not have just a moment, and I can get you that answer.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to check on.
Just one moment.
It's a separate license. That's what I thought. I wanted to make sure because I was a little unclear with this. Thank you.
Yeah, different types of licensing, so they would have to hold those licenses.
But they could hold both. Thank you.
Any other questions for the chairman? And Chairman, I'm sorry, was this LC 46?
Yes, I'm sorry. I should have
0404S?
should have followed that rule. LC 460404S.
Thank you. At the proper time, do we have a motion? Motion and a second. Do we have any questions? All in favor of the bill, say aye. All opposed? Online, do we have anyone? Any questions? All approve? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, committee members, for being present, for listening. And we have no other bills on the calendar at the moment. Still have some working, but we are through today. You're dismissed. Thank you.